This is Creepy with Coffee.
Today's story is written by WWBSkywalker, titled Malaysian Chinese Ghost Story. This happened in the late 1990s to me. During the Asian financial crisis, the lack of jobs caused me to move out of my hometown in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and move north along to Pulau Penang to start my career as an accountant with Dell. Dell is an IT company. I rented a room with an old lady in an old part of Penang called Gelugor. Imagine an area with old Chinese, English, colonial houses, many over 100 years old. Penang is an island that was colonised by the British government in the 1800s, and Malaysia is in the Southeast Asia, just above Singapore. Being a young person and Dell going through an exciting startup stage in Asia, the work was interesting, but also demanding. It is not uncommon for me to work at Dell headquarters and return home past midnight. In Chinese culture, there's a ghost festival called Hungry Ghost Festival. This usually happened in August, and the story goes that ghosts and our ancestors would come and visit the living during this period, and we would often put out food for them as offerings. Anyway, one night I was working late a few days before the start of the festival. I encountered this strange event. I usually park my car across the road from the house where I was renting a room. When I got out of my car, I saw this very old man with dark, weathered skin, slowly cycling towards me. Now, this was very late in a very quiet part of town, and in my many months of working late, I've never encountered a single person this late to the day. So this was unusual to start with. Then he stopped in front of me and spoke Hokkien, the local Chinese dialect which I was still trying to pick up by then. Lu e zai lang kita lo si bo. I didn't quite understand him, so I answered my standard way in such encounter in Penang by asking whether we can converse in Mandarin, the official Chinese language. Sorry uncle, 你会讲华语吗? Instead, he asked me whether I could understand English, which I then replied I could. As clear as today, he asked the exact following question. This is word by word. Do you know where people go die? Do not on the missing tooth. I remember being shocked and I stammered back an apology and replied that I didn't know. With that, he nodded and nonchalantly cycled slowly away. I quickly entered my house, a full sense of shock hitting me and noticing that it was precisely midnight then. Locking myself into my room and peeking out in the street with a pounding heart, it took some time before I could get some sleep. To this day, I cannot fathom whether that was really something paranormal. For another year of working very late, many days, I've never encountered another soul whenever I would return home. The writer continued saying, I was only living with the old landlady at the time, so I couldn't find the right opportunity to ask her about such a weird encounter. I've shared this story with friends, families, colleagues over the years before, and the common reaction is not terror, but rather chills due to the mundaneness of the whole encounter. We could never figure out why the old man, if he were not a ghost, would have asked such a question in such a strange circumstance. Through sharing my story, I did get one believable story in return. I work with a Chinese colleague who lives in Beijing. Her mother's side have what we Chinese call the spirit eye or yin yang yan, ability to see spirits and ghosts. It seemed to have skipped her, and she's always been a no-nonsense kind of person since I've known her. One day, while returning from grocery shopping with her young daughter of approximately 5 years old, in the elevator up to her apartment, her daughter seemed to be conversing with herself. Now, there were only two of them in the elevator, and it was daytime, so she thought her child was just play acting. Once they reached her floor, they exited the elevator. While she was unlocking the door to her apartment, her daughter tugged at her and asked, Mummy, who was that nice pawpaw? Pawpaw here means grandma or old lady in the elevator with them. It goes without saying that freaked her quite a bit. Now you see, her mother can see, she couldn't see, but they believed that this kind of ability was passed down from generation to generation, and finally now it reached her daughter.